What is going on? I'm the Tutaku, and this is part 5 of Jojo's Bizarre Adventures, Golden Wind. And before we get started, if you enjoy, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. But we will not only just be talking about the manga and anime of part 5, we will also be talking about 2 light novels that follow Fugo and his adventures of what happens after he leaves the group and after Giorno takes over Passione. But part 5, it's not going to be most of the video is just going to be the 2 light novels because they stayed true to the manga. But part 5 is about Juno Giovanna, which is Dio's kid that he had after he took control of Jonathan's body, And so the premise is Jotaro has Koichi go to Italy to find Giorno, to see if he is basically inherited his father's blood. And long story short, Koichi tells Jotaro that he's a gentle soul. But, he's just as just and righteous as every other Jojo there is. But so Giorno's dream is to get rid of all the drugs that Passione, the group, the mafia, has in there. And he befriends Bucciarati and his gang, and they try to go to find the boss, kill the boss, take over. So that is what happens. That's basically everything's pretty much, this whole video is just a spoiler, but I only have 3 panels for the manga, and then we can get into the 2 light novels because there's not much of it. They've pretty much followed everything. So first one here is when Giorno's a child and he saves that mafioso. In the anime it shows that he's like in this alleyway, kind of, if you will. Here, just, he's not really in an alleyway. He's kind of in like a rundown part of town. And then he saves him. Not a difference, I just showed how, it's just the Popo's fat ass fucking eating his own fingers, versus how he does. I mean, it's pretty much the same in the anime, but it's just how they drew in the manga. And lastly, Narancia is the only one. I just put it because I think it's cool that his stand, he's the only one that has like this unique way of putting away his stand, which, if you've seen it, it just rolls over the back of his shoulders on his arms. And his, it's not Little Bomber, it's Aerosmith. But that's the stands in here also. Before we continue on the light novels, this is where you see that you actually have upgrades, if you will, of 2 stands when there's Silver Chariot Requiem and Golden Experience Requiem, when they both touch the arrow that they find after Polnareff shows up and he tells them about it. But then, like I said, there's not many. After that, I'm trying to think who stands upgrades after that. Nobody stand, definitely not in part 6, but well, yes, in part 6, but differently than touching the arrow. But that's it for that, and we can get into the light novel. One of the light novels. The first one's a very shorter than the second one, but the first one is Golden Heart, Golden Ring, and it takes place directly right after when Fugo leaves the team after they, take Trish back to save her from the boss. So this is the events that follow after that, what he was doing. And it was created by a woman named Maya Shitaro. And the illustrations were still done by Hirohiko. So I'm going to read, I made a little paragraph. I'm just going to read what the synopsis of the entire series was. So there's a bunch of new stands. There's new characters. I would assume it's canon. He did the illustrations for it. I'm pretty sure that she got feedback from him about it, All right, and we can get started with Golden Heart, Golden Ring. A girl named Coniglio, which will just go by Connie, whose stand is the Cure, which is a small rabbit-like stand that cures people and absorbs their ailments and their suffering. She works in a hotel, and one day while waiting for one of her friends, she sees Fugo, who lets purple haze out, killing people in that hotel, one of them being Connie's friend. She tries to save her with the Cure, but is unable to, and she is hospitalized. After releasing purple haze and destroying the hotel's power generator, Fugo goes to see Songonola, a capo in the Passione who was ordered by the boss to kill Bucciarati's group. His stand is Joy Division, which allows him to switch objects in between both of his hands. Moreover, he can switch any object and even choose to delay the switch so that happens later. Giorno's group sees what happens on the news about the hotel, and they know that it's Fugo's doing. The group goes to find Seppa, a Passione member that is responsible for explosives trafficking in Venice. They reach Seppa's house, and he is nowhere to be found. Abbacchio uses Moody Blues and is able to determine that Seppa was taken by other Passione members by boat. The group follows, and they find out that it was a trap with mines in the water. Turns out that Seppa is actually an alter ego of Songliola. The minefield leads them to a Piazza San Marco, which another stand user named Rigatoni, who specializes in killing other stand users of Passione, I would imagine. And when he was Mista's old partner before Mista went and joined Bucciarati's group. His stand is Public Image Limited. See, all these stands just named after, which I think is cool as shit. They still, even in the light novel, they name them all after bands and songs and everything. Which is a stand that allows him to power up his bullet and absorb the stand's energy if anything hits it. The trade-off is that Rigatoni will lose his life. He'll lose his energy when hitting someone, but he also has to make sure to hit the target and absorb all their energy, or he'll die. Rigatoni severely injures Naracha and Abbacchio, but avoids killing him because he wants Mista to be his first kill. However, Giorno and Mista manage to outwit Rigatoni, killing him and moving on to St. Mark's Basilica. Meanwhile, while Connie's in the hospital, Fugo comes and lets out Purple Haze again, forcing her to use the cure to save most of the people affected by Purple Haze, and then she collapses. Fugo and Sogniola are at St. Mark's Basilica with the cure, who is transformed into a giant monster after absorbing so much of Purple Haze's virus, which normally Connie would release out through her days. Like, she would release she would release all the suffering and pain throughout the day, but since she absorbed it in such a short time, it had nowhere to go, and the cure transformed. Signiola is there in a rubber suit to protect him from the virus, and Gio and the group show up to the cathedral, and the cure begins to attack him. Eventually, Connie is able to get the cure under control, and it reverts back to its original form. Sogniola runs away, tries to get changed because he got a hole in his suit. As he tries to change, Giorno and Bucciarati show up, and Giorno says that Fugo must not have told him that he has the antibodies for the virus. And so Sogniola tries to run away from both of them using his stand, but has ended up being cornered by the group, and they kill him. Which there's a lot of, I didn't even say it, there's a lot of killing. Like, everybody's dying in here. They're killing everybody in part 5. But after the group leaves, they see a lone person on a boat, knowing it's Fugo. All they can do is say goodbye, and they continue on their search for the boss's identity. It's made known that Fugo always knew Sogniola's plan, and he set his own plan into motion, not to help Giorno, he also wasn't going to help try and kill them. And lastly, Connie goes to travel the world to use and understand her stand's powers. Which that is Golden Heart, Golden Ring. Which I actually, because I like this and the next one because you don't know particularly what happens with each of their story. And you're just like, well, where the hell did Fugo go? What the hell is Fugo doing? So I forgot to put with the manga portion of it, but because I have it in here in Purple Haze's light novel, Mista trivia. I don't know how true this is, but when I was listening to the guy's light novel, he went off and said, he was like, the reason why Mista got on the boat fifth is because when you see it was Bucciarati, Giorno, and then Abbacchio was like, I'm gonna, you know what I mean? He was like, I'm gonna get on. And so he didn't want to be the fourth person because Mista's weird bad luck with 4. So that's why he got on the boat 5th. All right, now we can get into the second and the longer version, the longer light novel. Which, I assume they're both the same amount of pages, whatever, but it's like this one has way more information in it than the first one. But this is Purple Haze, Jojo's Purple Haze, which was written by Kohei Kanado, which is also the same dude that wrote Crazy Diamond's Demonic Heartbreak, the manga series that has Whole Horse and Josuke in it. So he's also the same writer, and this is also illustrated. Hirohiko also illustrated the illustrations for this. So, you know, like I said with the last one, I'd assume that he, you know, had some input on there. But this is this is about what happens but this is what happens after Giorno kills the boss and he takes over Passione, and now he is the boss, and Mista goes to find Fugo. And, you know, this is Fugo's adventure after like I said, after Giorno takes over. So, has a lot of new characters. Actually, some old characters too. There's actually a character from part 4 in here, you know. So, but we will begin with Purple Haze's Purple Haze feedback. But so, Mista has Sheila E., a stand user, and a member of Passione, bring Fugo to Milan. Sheila E. only joined the Familia so she can assassinate a member of the assassination team that killed her sister. And upon hearing of his death, because they killed him, she was so grateful to Giorno for avenging her sister. She pledged her loyalty to him. Sheila E. was also the go-between between the assassination team and the boss, and her stand is called Voodoo Child, which allows her to make lips on any surface and replay the sound or thought. In addition, it is a very powerful close-range type stand. After informing Fugo on the deaths of their allies and Giorno's new status as the boss of Passione, with Polnareff and Mista being his second-in-command and third-in-command, Mista orders Fugo to assassinate Massimo Volpe and the rest of Passione's narcotics team to prove his loyalty to Giorno, or they're going to kill him. Fugo and Sheila E. meet their only teammate, Canolo, the only member of Passione's data analysis team, and his stand is along the Watchtower, which is a deck of 53 cards, yes, 53, because there's a Joker, that allows him to somewhat divine information, but also they're like 53 secret assassins. You know, it also divides any damage that he receives into 53, 53 times. Canolo lays out the documents on the table and shows the photo that catches Fugo's eyes as he recognizes the man as Massimo, an old friend who he went to college with, because Fugo is a genius, went to college when he was like 12. Canolo says that when the boss was starting out, he found it hard to smuggle drugs into, he's found it hard to smuggle drugs in until he found somebody that actually had a stand that could make a drug, which was Massimo. And he used his stand to make, and he distributed the drugs. Then Canolo brings out his stand that tells the three that the narcotics team is in Sicily, and they make their way to Sicily. Now we are going to get to the narcotics team, which makes up of 4 people: Vitriolo, Angelica, Massimo, and Vladimir are the 4. Angelica is described as extremely sickly and frail, with pale white skin and faintly red lips. Her neck often trembles and seems as if it could just snap off under the weight of her own head. Her stand is Nightbird Flying, which is able to spread the symptoms of the final stages of drug addictions into others. Vertero is a puny teenage boy with a frail build, which kind of reminds me of Narancha. But his stand is Dolly Dagger, which is a stand, it literally just a knife, it just appears as a knife. And it reflects 70% of all damage inflicted to him back to the person that dealt him the damage, basically. Vladimir appears to be a rather short old man with a worn down clothes and always holding a black umbrella. His stand is Rainy Day Dream Away and allows Vladimir to lock anyone's personal emotional state. The stand is integrated with the moisture in the air and takes the form of light rain. And then lastly we have Massimo, which is a tall Italian man described as having a regular and brawny build, making him look Irish. His brother is the Italian cook guy from part 4 in here, which his real name is Antonio Volpe, who was disowned by their father because he became a chef, And when Massimo got his stand, Antonio also got his stand, but they are the complete opposite. Where Antonio's stand heals, Massimo's stand manic depression. These names though are just like something else for the just like very like, I don't know, manic depression, which is able to increase the biological function of organisms by piercing them with his thorn, and its thorn is like in its stomach, in its belly button. The technique can also be used to increase heart rate, causing it to explode, force irregular stomach digestion, or increases one physical attributes for a couple of minutes, after which the body starts to break down. This ability can also slow the progression of incurable diseases, which he uses on Angelica because she's a super drug addict. It also has the power to convert salt into a powerful opiate, allowing it to be ingested for a drug-like effect, and it lasts up to like 2 weeks before turning back into salt. And that's how they were able to get their drugs in and out without getting caught. And then, like I said, the three make their way to Sicily. While they're making their way up this cliffside to Sicily, Fugo wonders why Giorno sent him to find the narcotics team, thinking there must be ulterior motives. And then Sheila E. runs off to track down a vomit-like scent, because she also has a really good sense of smell. She is attacked by Zucchero, which is one of the dudes from part 5 that, they were given a second chance, and then they got taken by the narcotics team, and then so now they're now they're brainwashed, if you will, and so she attacks and she captures him. He gets killed, and then she flees, realizing that it was a trap to get her away from Fugo and Canolo. And those two are in a theater, and they run into Vladimir, who has already activated his stand when Fugo made it within like 5 meters of him. So Fugo somehow gets swept away, like gone out of the theater, and Vladimir turns his attention to Canolo, but then Sheila E. shows up and starts to attack him. She puts use her stand to attack him, landing a small scratch on his cheek, but he doesn't have any fears, I guess. Lips form, but then disappears as Vladimir doesn't have any fear. I guess it doesn't tell any of his secrets. And then with a second of doubt in her heart, Sheila E., from Sheila E., Vladimir locks that emotion in, and then she is unable to hit him and fight him, and so he turns his attention back to Canolo. This is when Fugo shows up out of the sky and kills Vladimir with using purple haze. And then the narcotics team, mourn their loss of Vladimir. They know that he's dead, but they weren't in Sicily just to go to. So they were there because they were trying to find the Pillar Man mask, that the Nazis were looking for during World War II. So when the three show up to see where the rest of their narcotics team, the narcotics team is gone, and Massimo's stand went berserk and killed all their allies that were inside that building. Canolo uses his stand to see that they went to Syracuse, and Canolo calls for a helicopter, and on the way to there, a bird, which is Angelica's stand, is keeping up with them, going 250 clicks, which I think was like 160 miles an hour, and the bird makes it so the helicopter just starts to fall out of the sky. Everyone is put to sleep, and then after being woken up by a sleeping Fugo, Sheila E. is able to save him, but is unable to save the pilot or Canolo, and Angelica, you see that confirms that using her stand, saying that one or two of them is dead. And then Massimo decides to send Vitero after the mask, and then those two are going to deal with, Angelica and Massimo are going to deal with Giorno and Sheila E. Once back on land and awake, Fugo and Sheila E. steal a car. They are met up by people driving off the cliff, driving into walls, trying to drive into them. Then Sheila E. throws Fugo out, leaving him stranded, and she's going to try to fight Massimo on her own. Sheila E. then meets up with him. She tries to hit him with the car, but he uses his stand power to basically power up, because his stand can enhance his abilities for a couple minutes. And he stops the car, rips the roof off, and starts beating the shit out of an already unconscious Sheila E. Tells Angelica she can come out from hiding, but there's no response. Then a crowd of people that are moving towards him with Fugo in tow. Fugo gets stabbed by Sheila E., and he's able to use purple haze, killing her, dispelling her stand, so she's dead. An enraged Massimo starts to beat an already unconscious Sheila, and then Fugo shows up. Massimo dashes at Fugo. Fugo ends up crushing a purple haze tablet in his mouth to kill Massimo. And then says, for some reason, Fugo didn't die though because the stand evolved. And with that, that's 3 of 4. And now with Vitro, he finds a mask, but it's taken by Canola, who's not actually dead. He tests the mask and then destroys it, saying this was his true intention the whole time. Because apparently, like, the Speedwagon Foundation were looking for the mask, but they, he was like, Giorno told me to go and destroy this, so he destroyed the mask. That's what he was really looking for. Vitrio tries to kill Canola, but fails and ends up dying himself. And that takes care of everybody in the narcotics team. Like a week or later so, Fugo meets up with Giorno, and he reveals that the mission that he put him on was to help him overcome his own demons and to evolve his stand. And before leaving, Giorno gives him the photo that they took all together, and then Fugo ends up swearing his loyalty to Giorno. And that is it for Purple Haze's feedback, which I really enjoyed both of these because, if you've watched it, you're like, I don't know what the fuck was happening here. I don't know where Fugo went. I don't know what this is kind of like an after thing, but like it's still cool to it wraps up like what did Fugo do, what's happening with him now, so I think that's pretty cool. But that is it for Golden Wind and the 2 light novels of Golden Wind, and we will be talking about part 6 because Netflix and Google want to be like LOL JK. We're going to put it out, and we will be getting to part 6, Stone Ocean, in the next one. Otaku out.